Movies about movies. An interesting topic of discussion, and although there are many out there, I'd like to focus on three: The Bubble, Showbiz Kids, and Sunset Boulevard. One a documentary, the other a parody comedy about the COVID-19 pandemic, and lastly a story about a washed up actress. What could these films have in common? Well, whether it's tackled with jokes about the industry, interviews with child actors, or pity for the main character, they are all about the Hollywood machine. The Bubble is a film from Judd Apatow that was released on April 1st of this year, a fitting release date for a parody about the current global pandemic. The movie itself was inspired by the filming of the 6th edition to the Jurassic Park series. Apatow wanted to create a parody of the studio system, pumping out quote-unquote mindless films to distract the general public from the world crisis. This movie was produced by Apatow Productions and distributed by Netflix straight to streaming. The first signs of marketing for this film were released only 1 month earlier in the form of a trailer for the movie being filmed during the bubble, Cliff Beast 6. It's an interesting marketing ploy that captured the attentions of all of us stuck at home. This film was pitched in November of 2020 and was completed in March of 2022. Being considered a Hollywood movie, however, does not mean it's going to be well received. The film has only been out 2 days and has terrible reviews across the board for being self-obsessed and tone-deaf. The main plot of this movie is about filming a movie during the pandemic. It's filled with jokes and jabs at the studio system, unrealistic executives, and reminders of how the year 2020 and 21 played out in regards to COVID. But while understood to be a big joke, the film does touch on some serious topics in a lighthearted way. The blockbuster mentality is essentially conglomerate's response to the film industry and their productions formulated to perform well. Sequels, prequels, and continuations cast with A-list stars are the safest type of movie to make. Boiled down, the little man is not what matters in the eyes of the big production corporations. While understood the bubble is a big joke, the film does touch on some serious topics in a lighthearted way. It shows Cliff Beast 6 cast and crew members being mistreated, pushed to their limits, and forced to work through abuse in unsafe environments in a comedic way. However dramatic this film may be, the reality is abuse in the Hollywood system has been proved time and time again. The Bubble depicts the studio system filming from day one to release of the film as anarchy. The cast go through insane measures to film while having their lines cut if they try to speak out about the way they're being treated on set. The director and cast all being blackmailed if they don't keep up appearances and finish the film. The parody in The Bubble reflects the reality that is in Showbiz Kids. Written and directed by Alex Winter in 2020 and released in July, Showbiz Kids is a documentary that interviews child stars and talks about the ways that they were treated. We see a lot of very well-known actors express their frustrations with the Hollywood machine as they explain the abuse they've faced through the years. This film was produced by HBO Documentary Films straight for streaming platforms. Due to this distribution and style of film, it being a documentary, the filmmaker and actors were able to speak openly and honestly about the industry. The film was nominated for a Critic Choice Documentary Award in 2020 for Best Score. The film highlights the different roads each actor took as a child and how that affected them in their adult years. For Diana Carey, the question was, where is her money going when she's working? It explores the predatory way child actors were being used and abused. The death of Gary Coleman was brought up, explaining how he was still working full days on set while he was ill until his ultimate passing.
Any industry that has that much power and is that competitive starts to become, well, who can take the most abuse?
It's something that parents need to see and understand that these people are right there.
People are coming out and talking about things that they've experienced so that young women and young boys who are coming up in the game can have more awareness.
Hollywood is a tough place to make it. We've all heard this over and over, but when the stars themselves speak out, it starts to settle as more than just a common phrase. Being intimidated with their dispensability if they don't take the abuse is mirrored in The Bubble, but is true in real life. For many years, the idea that Hollywood is a glamorous place to be was never questioned until recently, when actors and actresses started to stand up for themselves and expose Hollywood for what it can be: abusive and manipulative to those lucky enough to take part in it. Although Hollywood is starting to take responsibility for its actions, there's still a long way to go. Sunset Boulevard, directed by Billy Wilder, made in 1950, is another example of shattering the glass that is cast over Hollywood. So much so that Louis Mayer, the mayor of MGM, told those who would listen that Wilder disgraced the industry that made him and fed him. Mayer wanted Wilder to be blackballed and run out of Hollywood. Sunset Boulevard gives an inside view at the Hollywood machine and how their actors are seen as dispensable objects, basing their value on their youth and beauty. This is portrayed through Norma. It explores the screenwriter's troubles as well, how they are no more important than anyone else and can be easily replaced if their stories aren't good enough. These three films, although ghastly different in their approach and intended messages, all circle back on the notion that there is always someone waiting to take your spot, and those who try will be perpetually shut down or exploited. Hollywood is notorious for eating you up and spitting you out. Movies about movies can serve as a cautionary tale for those lucky enough to find themselves where others fight to be, and hopefully can serve as a tool to hold studios accountable for their bad actions in the past and pave way for change in the industry.